What if I told you that your children will be genetically inferior to the children of billionaires, not because of education or opportunity, but because their DNA will literally be designed to be superior, not science fiction, not distant future, reality being built right now in laboratories, in fertility clinics, in corporate biotech facilities across the world. CRISPR gene editing technology has made it possible to rewrite human DNA, to eliminate disease genes, to enhance intelligence, to increase strength, to extend lifespan, to design humans with capabilities natural evolution never produced. And the wealthy are already doing it, already creating designer babies with enhanced genetics, already building a biological aristocracy, already engineering a future where inequality isn't just economic or social, but written into the genetic code itself. This is genetic slavery, the creation of a permanent biological people whose DNA marks them as inferior from conception, who can never compete no matter how hard they work, who are locked into lower status by their genes, while the genetically enhanced elite inherit superiority through modified DNA, creating a caste system more rigid than anything history has known, because you can overcome economic disadvantage. You can transcend social barriers, but you can't rewrite your genome, can't compete with people whose intelligence, health, and physical capabilities were engineered to surpass yours. Can't escape inferiority encoded in every cell of your body, and it's being marketed as medical progress, as disease prevention, as giving children the best start in life. But it's eugenics, the oldest dream of those who believe some humans are inherently superior, given new life through biotechnology, implemented not through force, but through market dynamics, through the simple reality that genetic enhancement will be expensive, available only to those who can afford it, creating biological advantage for the wealthy, genetic disadvantage for everyone else. A genetic divide that becomes permanent, heritable, written into the future of humanity itself. Let me show you the DNA prison being engineered for your descendants. 1953. Watson and Crick discovered the double helix structure of DNA, the molecule of heredity, the code that makes you who you are. It was pure science. Understanding, no one imagined that one day humans would be able to edit that code, to rewrite genetics, to engineer life itself. The technology seemed impossible. The implications too enormous, the ethical concerns too severe. So it stayed theoretical, academic, safe in the realm of what we understood but couldn't manipulate. And human biology remained democratic. Everyone got random genetic lottery, rich and poor alike subject to the same evolutionary mechanisms, the same natural selection, the same biological equality at conception. But science advances exponentially, and what seemed impossible becomes routine. What seemed safe becomes what seemed equal becomes the foundation for the most profound inequality ever created. 2012, Jennifer Doudna and Emmanuel Charpentier published their breakthrough, CRISPR Cas9, a gene editing tool that makes rewriting DNA as simple as using molecular scissors. Precise, efficient, cheap. Anyone with a modest laboratory can edit genes, can delete sequences, insert new code, rewrite the fundamental instructions that build organisms. It was celebrated as revolutionary, as a cure for genetic diseases, as a solution to human suffering caused by defective DNA, Nobel Prize in 2020. Humanitarian breakthrough, medical miracle, and nobody talked about what happens when you give humans the power to redesign themselves. When you make evolution a market commodity, when you let wealth determine who gets to be biologically superior. The first human genome editing happened in 2018. He Jiankui in China created twin girls with edited genes modified to be resistant to HIV. The world responded with outrage, called it unethical, premature, dangerous. He was imprisoned, his research condemned, international moratoriums proposed. Everyone agreed it was too soon, too risky, too ethically fraught. We need that time. Needed guidelines, needed to consider implications before editing human embryos, before creating permanent genetic changes that would be inherited by future generations, before crossing the line from treating disease to enhancing humans. But the technology doesn't wait for ethics. The market doesn't respect moratoriums, and the wealthy don't accept limitations that keep their children ordinary. Within 5 years, multiple countries had gene editing facilities for human embryos, clinics offering genetic modification, companies promising designer babies, all underground, all technically illegal, all completely unstoppable. Because the demand is infinite, the profit is enormous, and the technology is too simple to contain. You can't uninvent CRISPR, can't prevent its use, can only drive it underground where it operates without oversight, without regulation, without ethical constraints, where the only limit is what clients can afford, and the wealthy can afford everything. They're already using it, already creating genetically enhanced children, already ensuring their offspring have advantages your children can never overcome. Intelligence genes optimized, disease susceptibilities removed, physical capabilities enhanced, longevity extended, beauty standardized, to cultural ideals, all through germline editing that becomes permanent. That gets inherited. That creates genetic lineages of superiority. Would you accept your child being genetically inferior to their classmates because you couldn't afford enhancement? Because that's what's coming. That's what's being created. A biological class system where the rich don't just have better education and opportunities. They have better DNA, objectively superior genetics, engineered advantages in intelligence, health, attractiveness, and ability, creating competition that's fundamentally unfair, where effort doesn't matter, where potential is predetermined, where the genetic lottery is rigged before conception. And it starts small, seemingly innocent, preventing disease. Who could oppose eliminating genes for cancer, for Alzheimer's, for muscular dystrophy? It's compassionate, humanitarian, reducing suffering, except disease prevention becomes risk reduction. Risk reduction becomes optimization. Optimization becomes enhancement. Enhancement becomes superiority. The line is invisible. The slope is frictionless. And the progression is inevitable. Once you accept editing embryos to prevent disease, you've accepted the principle, accepted that human genetics should be modified. That DNA is improbable. That natural isn't necessarily good. And from there, everything becomes justified. Everything becomes optimization. Everything becomes enhancement. Until you're not preventing disease, you're creating superhuman. The biotechnology companies know this. They're banking on it. Literally billions invested in gene editing technologies. CRISPR Therapeutics. Egitas Medicine. Intellia Therapeutics. Dozens more. All developing tools to edit human genetics. All claiming it's for disease treatment. All knowing the real market is enhancement. Is designer babies. Is genetic advantage for those who can pay. The market for preventing disease is limited. The market for making children smarter, stronger, healthier, more attractive, unlimited. Every parent wants advantages for their children. Every wealthy family wants to ensure their genetic legacy. Every elite wants their offspring to be objectively superior. And gene editing makes it possible. China's already embracing it. No religious objections to editing life. No ethical hand-wringing. Just pragmatic acceptance that gene editing is a technology like any other. To be developed, to be exploited, to be used for national advantage. Chinese scientists are leading gene editing research. Chinese clinics are offering services Western countries ban. Chinese families are creating enhanced children while the West debates ethics. And in 20 years, 30 years, those enhanced Chinese children will be competing with your unenhanced American children for jobs, for opportunities, for the future, except it won't be competition. It'll be domination. Because they'll be genetically superior, objectively smarter, healthier, more capable, not through better education, through better DNA, through genetic advantage your children can never overcome. And wealthy Americans are already going to China for these services, already editing their embryos, already creating enhanced children, already ensuring that genetic legacy includes engineered superiority, while middle class and poor Americans continue with natural conception, with random genetic lottery, with DNA that hasn't been optimized, with children who will be biologically inferior to the designer babies of the elite. If this is making your blood run cold, if you're starting to see the genetic caste system being engineered, subscribe now. Because what comes next reveals how deep this biological inequality already goes. The technology isn't just about editing embryos. It's about adult enhancement. Gene therapy that can modify your DNA after birth, that can enhance muscles, improve cognition, extend lifespan, reverse aging, all through genetic modification. And it's being developed, being tested, being prepared for market by companies that will charge hundreds of thousands, millions, prices only the wealthy can afford, creating ongoing genetic divergence, where the rich get continual enhancement, continual optimization, continual improvement, while everyone else stays natural, stays limited, stays human in a world increasingly populated by the genetically enhanced. China's gene doping athletes. Reports from sports medicine suggest Chinese Olympic programs are using gene therapy to enhance performance, to increase muscle growth, to improve oxygen capacity, to create athletes whose capabilities exceed natural limits, not through training, through genetic modification, through editing genes that govern physical performance, creating superhuman capabilities that natural athletes can't match, can't compete against, can't overcome. It's the future of all competition, where victory goes not to the most dedicated, not to the hardest working, but to the genetically enhanced, to those whose DNA has been optimized for winning, and it's spreading beyond athletics. Musicians editing genes for perfect pitch, artists enhancing visual processing, programmers modifying genes associated with mathematical ability, soldiers enhanced for aggression and pain tolerance. Every field, every competition, every human endeavor being transformed by genetic enhancement, by biological optimization, by DNA modification that creates capabilities natural genetics never produced, making the unenhanced obsolete, making natural humans inferior, making genetic modification mandatory for anyone who wants to compete, to succeed, to matter. In a world increasingly dominated by the enhanced, but enhancement is expensive, prohibitively expensive for most. A single gene therapy treatment costs hundreds of thousands. Designer baby services start at millions. Ongoing enhancements, more than most families earn in lifetimes. So it becomes available only to the wealthy, only to the elite, only to those who can afford to be superior, creating biological inequality that mirrors and reinforces economic inequality. The rich get richer and genetically superior. The poor stay poor and genetically inferior. The gap becomes unbridgeable, permanent, written in DNA, and it's heritable. That's the crucial part. The enhancement gets inherited, gets passed to children, to grandchildren, creating genetic lineages of superiority, dynasties built on engineered DNA, while unenhanced families remain unenhanced generation after generation, unable to afford the genetic modifications that would give their children competitive capabilities, watching their descendants fall further and further behind, becoming genetically obsolete, biologically inferior, permanently disadvantaged by DNA they can't afford to improve. This is the genetic caste system, the biological aristocracy, the DNA-based hierarchy that's being created right now in fertility clinics offering optimization packages, in biotech labs developing enhancement therapies, in offshore facilities beyond regulatory reach, in markets where genetic superiority is bought and sold, creating a future where humanity splits into the enhanced and the natural, the superior and the inferior, the genetic haves and have-not, a division more profound than race or class or nationality, a division written in the code of life itself. Would you condemn your descendants to genetic inferiority for eternity because you couldn't afford enhancement? But maybe you think regulations will prevent this, that laws will ensure equal access, that society won't allow biological inequality, except regulations are national. Enhancement is global. Labs exist in countries with no restrictions. Clinics operate beyond oversight. The wealthy travel to wherever services are available. And the market is too profitable to stop, too lucrative, to regulate away, too international to control, creating a race to the bottom, where countries that ban enhancement lose their wealthy citizens to countries that allow it, where regulation becomes competitive disadvantage, where prohibitions become because you can't prevent people from having superior children if the technology exists somewhere. Can't enforce biological equality when enhancement is available for purchase. Can't stop the genetic divide when the market demands it. And the companies developing these technologies have no incentive to ensure equal access. They're for profit, publicly traded, answerable to shareholders demanding maximum returns. Making enhancement affordable to everyone reduces profit margins, reduces exclusivity, reduces the value proposition. The business model requires restriction, requires high prices, requires genetic enhancement to be luxury good, available to few, denied to many, creating the inequality that makes it valuable. That makes it desired. That makes it profitable. Patents on human genes compound the problem. Companies claiming intellectual property rights over genetic sequences, over editing techniques, over enhancement methods, creating monopolies on human biology, making genetic improvement proprietary, licensed, controlled, ensuring enhancement remains expensive, remains exclusive, remains available only to those who can afford to pay corporate gatekeepers. It's privatization of human commodification of genetics, treating DNA as property to be owned and sold, and the owners aren't the public, aren't humanity collectively. They're corporations, biotech companies, patent holders who control access, who set prices, who decide who gets to be genetically enhanced, who gets to be superior, who gets to pass advantages to their children based entirely on ability to pay. This is genetic slavery, not through chains and whips, through biology, through DNA, through genetic modification that creates permanent inequality, that ensures some humans are objectively superior, that locks others into inferiority, that makes social mobility impossible because biological capability is predetermined. Optimized for the wealthy, left natural for everyone else, creating classes more rigid than anything medieval, more permanent than anything conceived, more unjust than anything because genetic inferiority can't be overcome, can't be transcended, can't be equalized. It's written in every cell, inherited by every generation. Permanent disadvantage encoded in DNA, and children will understand they're genetically inferior. We'll see the enhanced with their perfect health and superior intelligence and optimal capabilities. We'll recognize that no amount of work can close the gap. That effort is futile against genetic advantage, that they were born to be less, born to serve, born to occupy lower positions in a hierarchy determined by DNA. The psychological impact will be devastating. The social consequences catastrophic. The human cost incalculable, creating populations who know they're inferior, who accept it as biological fact, who internalize genetic caste as natural order. History tried this before, called it eugenics. Forced sterilization of the unfit, selective breeding of the superior, scientific racism, biological determinism, the idea that human worth is genetic, that some people are inherently better, that society should be organized by biological hierarchy. It was practiced in America, in Europe, in countries worldwide, until Nazi Germany took it to logical extreme, until the Holocaust revealed where genetic determinism leads, until humanity rejected the premise that biology determines worth, that genetics justifies inequality, that DNA defines destiny. But we're doing it again with better technology, with market mechanisms instead of state force, with consumer choice instead of coercion, but achieving the same outcome: biological hierarchy, genetic inequality, DNA-based caste system, just voluntary this time, just through individual decisions to enhance children, just through market dynamics that ensure only the wealthy can afford optimization. Creating the same human sorting, the same biological stratification, the same genetic supremacy. We learned nothing, forgot everything, and are building the same nightmare with new tools. Do you trust corporations to create biological castes based on who can afford their services? The transhumanist ideology driving this believes humans should transcend biological limitations, should use technology to evolve beyond natural constraints, should engineer superior versions of ourselves. It sounds progressive, forward-thinking, optimistic about human potential, but it's eugenics. Same philosophy, same assumptions, same outcome. The belief that some humans should be biologically superior, that genetic hierarchy is desirable, that inequality written in DNA is progress, just marketed differently. Wrapped in Silicon Valley optimism and technological utopianism. Sold as enhancement rather than inequality, but creating the same result: biological aristocracy, genetic underclass, permanent divisions based on DNA, and the enhanced will justify it, will claim they earned their superiority, that their parents made good decisions, that natural humans could enhance if they worked harder, saved more, made better choices, ignoring that genetic enhancement is priced beyond reach for most, that the system is designed to create inequality, that biological advantage is being monopolized by the wealthy. They'll develop ideologies justifying genetic supremacy, claiming enhanced DNA makes them better, more valuable, more deserving. Natural humans as inferior, as obsolete as genetic creating supremacist thinking based not on race or ethnicity but on engineered genetics, on purchased superiority, on DNA modified by wealth, and natural humans will be discriminated against in employment, in insurance, in social relationships. Genetic screening will identify the companies will prefer enhanced workers with superior capabilities. Insurance will charge more for natural genetics with higher disease risk. Dating markets will favor enhanced individuals with optimized traits, creating systematic discrimination based on DNA, based on genetic status, based on whether your parents could afford enhancement. It's discrimination more insidious than any faced before, because it's based on supposedly objective biological differences, on actual genetic variations, on measurable capabilities, making it seem justified, natural, rational, while being fundamentally unjust, created by market forces, by wealth inequality, by privatized access to genetic modification. The future isn't distant. Genetic enhancement is happening now. Designer babies being born today, gene therapies entering markets, enhancing clinics operating globally. The genetic divide is opening. The biological caste system is forming. The DNA-based hierarchy is emerging. And most people don't see it, don't understand the implications, don't realize their children are being relegated to don't recognize that biological equality is ending, that human DNA is becoming commodity, that genetics is becoming another dimension of inequality, another way the wealth is separate from everyone else, another advantage money can buy, the most permanent advantage, the most consequential inequality, the most unjust division written in the code of life itself, and stopping it seems impossible. The technology exists. The market demands it. The wealthy want it. Countries compete through it. Companies profit from it. How do you prevent genetic enhancement when it's technically feasible, when it's economically valuable, when it's globally distributed, when it's individually desired? Regulation drives it underground. Prohibition makes it more expensive. Restriction creates black markets. Nothing stops it. Nothing prevents it. Nothing ensures equality. We're creating genetic castes without voting, without consent, just through market mechanisms and technological capability, through individual choices that collectively create systemic inequality, through rational decisions that produce irrational outcomes, through personal advantage that generates societal catastrophe. The children born today might be the last generation of natural humans. The last two have unmodified DNA. The last two inherit random genetics. The last two exist in biological equality. Their children, their grandchildren, they'll live in a world of genetic castes, of biological hierarchy, of DNA-determined status, where your genome defines your opportunities, your capabilities, your worth, where enhancement is everything, where natural is inferior, where genetics is destiny, written permanently, inherited eternally, unchangeable, inescapable, the final prison, the ultimate slavery, encoded in DNA. But maybe that's already decided. Maybe the genetic divide is inevitable. Maybe biological inequality is unavoidable. Maybe human genetic engineering was always going to create castes. Maybe equality was temporary and condition, ending with technology capable of rewriting DNA. Maybe the future belongs to the enhanced, and natural humans become obsolete, outcompeted, irrelevant, genetic dead ends, while engineered superiority becomes the new normal, the new humanity, leaving unenhanced humans behind as relics, as inferiors, as genetic underclass forever. Unless enough people understand what's happening. Unless enough people demand genetic enhancement be public good, universal, right? Equally accessible. Unless enough people refuse to accept biological castes. Unless enough people fight for genetic equality. For human dignity regardless of DNA. For the principle that no child should be genetically inferior because their parents couldn't afford optimization. Unless humanity decides that genetics is too fundamental to be too consequential to be privatized, too important to be monopolized by the wealthy. Unless we choose equality over enhancement. Choose dignity over superiority. Choose humanity over but that choice is disappearing. The genetic divide is opening. The castes are forming. The DNA-based hierarchy is emerging, and soon it'll be too late, too entrenched, too accepted, too normal. The enhanced will be established. The natural humans will be marginalized. The genetic slavery will be complete, written in DNA, inherited by generations, permanent, eternal, the final inequality, the ultimate injustice, the death of human equality, replaced by biological hierarchy, by genetic castes, by DNA-determined destiny that no one voted for, no one chose, no one can stop, just emerging from technology and market forces and individual choices, creating collective nightmare, one designer baby at a time. If this revelation has exposed the genetic prison being built in DNA, if you're seeing the biological caste system taking shape, you need to understand the full scope. Because gene editing is just one tool. The next episode reveals how genetic engineering combines with artificial intelligence, neural interfaces, and synthetic biology to create post-human entities that aren't human anymore, that are designed, owned, controlled, that represent the end of humanity and birth of something else, something that was human but isn't, something designed to be slaves. Biological machines, living property. Subscribe. Turn on notifications. Share this with everyone who believes human dignity matters. Because what we reveal next is the final transformation. The ultimate horror. The complete redesign of human existence. And you need to see it before it's done to your descendants. Before humanity ends. Before something else begins. See you on the other side. While humans still means something.